Fucking hate this. Now we're live with audio. That's amazing.
Do you have a video?
We do have
video. How do I know if Meeting Owl's actually...
Yeah, like usually her eyes close.
You're right. It does not show up. How about I do this?
Oh. Is it he or she?
I go with it.
It. Okay.
I go with she.
It's
the female
looking at
voice
me.
when it turns on. It's like.
So as far as I can tell, we are live and we have audio and everything is hunky dory.
We are wasting internet.
And we are.
I hope these conversations.
I hope everyone can
We're live.
see
And we have audio and video, so we are simply wasting internet right now.
Okay, yes, we are live.
All right, so let's talk about this one. So,
Yeah, do you want to give some explanation for this?
oh yeah, you're on the call. Actually, that's a good point.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So as Corey mentioned before, most of the APIs were already approved. This one was one that was missed. It's protected virtual. So that would require a cancellation token as well in order to implement the already accepted ones. And the other part of the proposal are the copy to async overloads with cancellation tokens. I assume those were just missed as well.
Yes. How can we get these APIs in Net Standard?
You can't.
Wait for the next version of Net Standard.
Let me rephrase your question. When can we have a time machine?
Yeah, so these are just the last cancelable APIs that we need. HttpContent.
Can we have an adapter?
Start shipping HttpClient again, even more.
Yeah,
No.
that one.
Let me ask you differently. Do you care about running on .NET Framework?
About what?
Do you care about running on .NET Framework?
No.
You do, so you just
Well, we do, but keep going. But it doesn't. But it's not. It has nothing to do with .NET Framework.
No, well, it does. Like, let me put it differently. If the only thing you care about is running on Core, even older versions on Core, we can probably make that work.
Oh, okay.
But there's no way we can make .NET Framework run against the newer version of HttpClient. We tried that, and it never. It's just a disaster.
So I understand. Also, what I'm not looking for is this feature actually working, because we today have code.
You just
so
want
it
the
doesn't
API.
have those overloads. So these code paths are not cancelable. Too bad. What we would need to do to start using them in terms of kind of light up, when you happen to run on .NET Core that supports them, we would need kind of a bridge API. So our libraries can just call an API, like let's say an extension method on HttpContent, and then the extension method would be cross-compiled. I wonder if you guys could provide those cross-compiled bridge packages.
That is a lot of work with a lot of noise.
That's why we don't want to do it.
No, I mean, like, it's way easier if it's
actually
contained in the consuming library.
Well, but
we made all the standard contents cancelable, Christoph. So if you stick with a stream and string, you'll be fine. It just if you do create your own custom content stream, then you might have troubles cancel it. But then I guess you could cancel it through other means as well.
yeah,
So we ship with a 3.0, we have full duplex stream, which is fully cancelable if you stick to standard content types or content PHP content implementations.
yeah, we have a custom HttpContent implementation.
Well, then I guess you still could cancel it inside of that, right? So if you signal your custom implementation, this should be canceled. You don't necessarily need to rely on the public API.
Maybe. Okay, let me let's have this discussion separately. Let's now first review the APIs.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was my recommendation. Let's see if this makes sense, and let's get moving so Miha can, finish the stuff. And
So the main unfortunate thing about this is last week, 2 virtual forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean? At least it's not. Abstract makes it actually better. You know
No,
that you
but
have to implement it.
If the one you don't want is abstract, and the one you do want them to use is not abstract.
It means that if you override just one of them, you're at least okay with the default. Maybe just not all.
Yeah, you have to know to override the longer one.
You have to override both.
Already?
Because someone could still be calling the parameter.
I assume that our implementation would just call the parameterized one.
No, the parameterized one has to call the parameterless one, because the parameterless one
Oh
is the one
yes,
that already
because
exists.
yeah, I forgot about that. Sure. Yeah. So at some point we were talking about having analyzers or something like that that would help people know what to do here for those base types.
Great.
That would be very nice.
The analyzer will tell you. Ideally, we'd be in a
Well, app.
I believe those are known as virtual.
Well, that's what we were talking about, things like figuring out how to handle this in the base class so that we do the right thing in runtime layer, and then the ref say that the longer overload is abstract, assuming that that's sensible. So now, say that you're deriving this type in Net Core 5, it's like you're missing an abstract. You're like breaking chain. Major version.
I mean,
But it'll work at runtime because it wasn't abstracted.
the proposal here seems.
All right, so is this just create content, read stream async, and copy to async that are being modified, or is there more?
No, that's it. Yeah. I suppose nobody has more comments on it, so I'm about to post. All right. This is it. Boom, 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 boom. Anything else you want to jump in, or is that
no?
Then anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we'll just go the list from left to right.
That's good.
I guess you're up again because you're probably the closest person.
I could have sworn we looked at this last time.
Does not look familiar.
I guess not. Okay, so technically HTTP allows you to have a redirect from secure to insecure. We know it. Some people are asking for it still, so we need some.
So what's the scenario why you would need that?
There were a couple comments down in the issue. Sounds to me.
You'll see it on often Uber.
Yeah.
Like if you look within CoreNet, for instance, right, a lot of our stuff is over HTTP due to other.
Let's see.
Sounds like a super name.
Yeah.
Like many services store secrets in headers. And then you redirect to HTTP and what happens?
That's why it's false by default.
It's called
Yeah.
plain text.
I mean, it depends on depends on the underlying.
Technically speaking, HTTP can redirect to Gopher. Nobody knows what that is. Posts you a URI and you do it. So,
I mean, it's in fairness though, like secrets are generally speaking a huge problem in pretty much all environments. Look at, for example, how CI builds are being handled. Secrets are usually in environment variables. Well, many people use MS built-in diagnostic logging mode. Guess what it does? It dumps all environment variables into a log file. So be careful where the log file is publicly available.
Well, you still have to make the log file available. Here it just goes, to the internet that we were just wasting.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's another example of, like, leaking secrets is relatively easy. Like, it's just one of those examples. But this one, you're opting into this, you're setting it.
I don't think reasonably anybody is to set property.
My main concern is that sometimes if you get magically start using, but really during that.
I mean, would you want something like allow?
I mean, a
Or
callback
callback?
would be nice.
Because don't we already do that with stuff?
Yeah, you can just allow all sorts.
Maybe that
we have a callback, and then we have a special callback that is the known. It's going to just say return true because that lets us work in places that we can't actually provide the callback.
Because I wonder if maybe that would be the way to do this. Like before it performs the redirect, invokes your callback. Hey, is this?
Yeah, I think that seems.
Well, my question would be, like, how much more of a hole are you digging yourself in by doing that? Like, how many more mistakes can you make in this one? This one you can't really fuck up.
The worst you can do is you can return.
Yeah, worst you can, right? You implement it as return true, which is the most common certificate verification handler you can find on Stack Overflow. And
oh, you're saying
the worst you can do is no worse than setting this problem.
Yeah.
So I thought you basically asked for, like,
Change. Would it work?
Would, but isn't so huge.
You can't really subclass this.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you could definitely do.
You could wrap the error that you get and do the redirect manually.
That would be a cancelable.
But I was not talking about you inherit and you provide the feature. You inherit and you override a property getter that returns false, and now you return true.
Oh, okay. So like a property.
It could be protected and it would hide it. It would not be like a.
Be harder to use.
Or just the Boolean and not the with context.
Maybe. But then extend it and it returns Boolean, but we pass in the the redirect information. And then you can decide whether you return true or false.
well, with subclassing those, it doesn't compose really nicely, right?
Well, there's already a way to handle. Just turn off auto redirect. Get your response back. Or whatever.
You have to crack open the location to actually get it.
Yeah, so at that point it's totally manual. Yeah. How often do you run into it? Well, I'm okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. It just seems like something potentially dangerous, and we are providing super easy property to just set it to true and then forget that you ever did that. But
That's
maybe it's okay. I don't.
honest, it's not the end of doing it. Is it?
But like func bool is or func of string bool, or an event or a custom value type or whatever, does give you more like better control of.
And I'm just going by the existing certificate validation callback, just as existing design that we can model.
Because you could write the thing that says either you're going to go pre-resolve the host name and make sure it's on a 10 dot or whatever, or you could just say return true.
And that callback would be synchronous, not asynchronous.
Well, if you want to resolve stuff, then async would be nice. But
If it's someplace that you're probably going to go, then the synchronous DNS lookup is fine.
yeah,
It should already be in your cache if it's somewhere you were really going to go.
So someone is asking, wouldn't the people needing this, meaning this redirect, need to design their stuff as such that they serve a 301 or 302 on HTTPS to HTTP and follow it themselves?
Well, the server wouldn't follow anything. The server would just send the response header.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the client, right? The client just basically pings the other URL, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. You can imagine like a URL shortening service, for instance, that always gives you HTTPS shortened URLs that can redirect literally anywhere.
Right.
Like that could be one. I don't know if that would ever, if anyone would ever use this code to do that, but that's an example.
yeah.
And then you could write that if it's from bit.ly or AKA-MS or any of the t.co or whatever, then you're like, yes. From there to I don't care.
So what should the callback get? Just the URL or the whole request?
I think we'd want to look at that. There
Yeah.
There are some like property bags on HttpClient that could be nice to expose here. So
So I think we would just suggest that networking should evaluate a contextual callback instead of a
yeah, just
blanket
kick it back to us.
and then they can design that offline.
I just want to make sure that we give the right input to this.
Yeah. If you, I haven't looked at the certificate validation callback enough to know if it's a good design. I assume it is because people are successful with it, but that can serve as a model for this.
Yeah. All right, so then let me just bounce this back. That is 33791. All right, and let's go to the next one. I think that seems reasonable. Immutable hash set.
Do we have this method on any of our other hash sets? Other sets, I should say.
So ImmutableHashSet has TryGetValue.
Yeah, we should probably have that. That was probably an oversight. So the problem is the builders are effectively an API mirror of the immutable types, except that they're mutable.
Sure.
So whatever reader methods you have on the immutable type, you should also have on the builder type,
Yeah.
just for symmetry reasons.
One of the things that we did back in full framework ASP.NET was whenever we had these dual types, we actually had unit tests to make sure that the API surface was the same in both cases. I wonder if maybe as part of this change, we should also have those tests.
Reflect and make sure that they mirror, except for where you said they're allowed to not.
Exactly, yeah.
Basically. I mean, I've done similar things in my own stuff. It's like having API consistency unit tests is actually a really nice thing
And that's
because
all it was, an API consistency.
yeah, because it's very hard to do this in a review.
Yeah. But it would it would definitely catch something like this. Seems fine.
Yeah, I think it's an actual excellent idea. Let me.
Yeah, I mean, they are logically mirrored, but they are not
Yeah, and you
method
would
mirrored,
have
so it's going to be an ugly test.
and you would have a set of exclusions as well.
Yeah.
But, it does look like TryGetValue is the only logically missing thing.
Okay, so maybe that will be overkill then, unless this is historically been a problem. I know that for full framework ASP.NET, it historically was a problem, which is why we added the test.
Well, because you get like ImmutableHashSet has intersect, which will return a new ImmutableHashSet, and then the builder has intersect with, which modifies the content.
Is
So
that fair?
they have a lot of the concepts are the same except for TryGetValue, but the names and signatures are not.
Do we also need to should we go through stuff like immutable array, immutable list, blah blah blah, and check them as well for consistency as part of this?
Well, I just give that as homework.
Yeah, not right this second.
Right.
So
That'd be homework for whoever owns collections.
one comment about the parameter names. We have a similar method on like dictionary, and we don't call them actual value and equal value, correct?
On immutable hash set of T, they are called equal value and actual value.
Oh, really? Okay.
So this is they want to mirror the immutable hash set to the immutable
All
hash
right.
set.
Well,
Yeah.
What's
You're
wrong with
right,
the
though.
naming?
well, they are not like the dictionary names.
Well, the dictionary's key and value, and this is what's the thing that if I call hashset.add, you will return
Yeah.
false, and what's the reason that you already mapped there? So it's the key to key instead of key to value.
That's an API.
Why? It's if you have a case insensitive
Yeah.
comparator, it's
Yeah.
I put in this string, it tells you the one that you already have is all caps.
Just so that you get back something with referential equality.
Well, it's like the project. So these APIs were developed by Andrew Arnold, who works on the VS project system. So they do that for file paths a lot because they need to know what the actual casing is because they don't want to have it all lowercase or uppercase in the IDE, right? They want to actually render the actual value.
Here's the input string, here's the canonical value.
Sure. And we just never added that on.
The builder.
Oh,
The-
HashSet actually has that API. Okay.
I think we added it to hash. What's the name there?
TryGetValue, T equal value, T actual value.
See?
Okay,
So we
great. I wouldn't know if it's on dictionary.
We have it on dictionary. It's just the parameters are called differently. But it's the reason is what Jeremy now.
But I don't think
mentioned.
dictionary has given this key, tell me what you actually believe the key is.
It does not.
No, well, TryGetValue would do that exactly.
No, it doesn't give you back the key.
It gives you the value associated with the key.
Yeah.
But if you had a case insensitive
Oh, what was?
dictionary,
Oh, I see what. Yeah, sure.
but again, on like HashSet is really just dictionary of T to same T.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
I never knew we had that API in HashSet. Great. I will somehow find use for this in my own code.
if you're using, I guess yes, if you're writing your own string inter.
Yep.
Have I ever seen this before? Great, replace it.
all right. So then let me pass this API. Paste this in.
Of course, we do see zero usage of this on Nuke.
Which of this method?
Yeah. I just noticed the lack of bar charts. It's like, oh, we're missing data. No, it's just how zero gets rendered.
Clearly, it's in the wrong place. This one is better.
Maybe.
All right. So this is this one. Next.
Oh, Chris
Levi.
this, right?
what it says.
All right.
Basically, take a span of byte and yeah. So there are two sets of APIs. The first is given two buffers, byte buffers, compare the contents for ASCII equality. And the second is given a source buffer, please convert stuff to ASCII upper or ASCII lower and then write it to a destination buffer. They're all invariant. They're not culture aware because it's ASCII.
Looks like we are extraordinarily inconsistent in how we spell ASCII.
Yes.
So,
Really?
about 50% of them are all caps, and about 50% of them are case like this.
Yeah.
So the only thing here that may be worth describing, if I remember correctly, I was trying to do it to parse headers.
Yes.
And they are not strictly ASCII, correct?
Headers are Latin 1, which no one should ever send anything outside of the ASCII range.
Yes.
Because implementation just falls.
So my question was, what do we want to do with it? Basically say, this is really just ASCII, or...
You talking about HTTP headers?
Well, MIME headers, yeah.
Oh,
Do you mean ASCII 7 or ASCII 8?
well, they have no encoding. It's not
Yeah.
specified. So
Yeah. If you go way back to the MIME or the MIME specification,
Yeah.
like it's suggested that you use ISO 8859.1,
Yes.
but in practice, like people don't really know what to do
Yeah.
outside of ASCII, so
Yeah.
whatever. ASCII being 7.
So I thought the spec says basically Latin 1, or the ISO
The spec says for maximum compatibility, use ISO 8859.1.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking the MIME spec, not like
Yeah.
something that very much predates HTTP.
I
Yeah.
think we have one or two headers in there that we actually special case and try to interpret as UTF-8.
Yeah, location header often is one of them.
Yeah, might be one more.
Yeah.
Oh.
But what the 1341 says, it has two predefined character sets, US-ASCII and ISO 8859-X, and says if you didn't specify anything, assume it's US ASCII. So it does believe 7-bit ASCII.
Yeah. And that's all this is. Like anything that's not a 7-bit ASCII character, like any byte where the high bit is set, it just says whatever. I'm leaving it alone because I know what to do. But
Equals would say false if it ever sees a high bit.
no, it would say if there's a byte with the high bit on the left side, that exact same byte has to exist on the right side. The exact same byte.
So just no case transition.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my question on it would be, does the suffix utility provide value? Should this just be
Oh,
ASCII?
I hate this class name.
Well,
We do have a namespace, System.Text.Unicode, where we've been putting some UTF-8 utility stuff. ASCII is not Unicode, so that ends up being a problem.
Well, I mean, like, we could also put it, like, is there any reason why we can't put them as static methods on ASCII encoding?
So we don't have static methods on any of the other encoding classes to do very particular stuff like that. The other reason that I dislike that, I spoke with Tarek earlier about this, is you can subclass those types and change their behavior. What does it now mean to have an opinionated static API on a type that is effectively abstract?
it's static, so it has no
Yeah.
notion of inheritance. It's
Right,
just the
right.
place that it,
But we didn't do it with UTF-8. Mainly because we were opinionated in stuff like error processing.
but UTF-8, we have a class called UTF-8, right?
We do. It was added in 3.0. That was because we didn't want to add it to UTF-8 encoding.
Sure. But like, instead of ASCII utility, if we just called this ASCII,
ASCII. Yeah, you could do that.
then it would be better mirroring what we did with.
Yeah.
But it would be still in system text.
Yes. As opposed to system text. We do have encoding.ASCII, all uppercase ASCII, as a static property that gives you back an ASCII encoding. So this should not interfere with that.
Why is it not in system buffers or text?
We could put it there instead.
Because that's where base64 lives.
That's actually not a bad idea, because we have UTF-8. We have this type called UTF-8.
System text Unicode is a namespace for that.
We have UTF-8 format and UTF-8 something parser? No, what is
Well,
it?
but I thought
So UTF-8 formatter and UTF-8 parser are in the system buffers namespace. The UTF-8 static class is in system text Unicode. But I mean, we could put this in, because this only works with buffers, it would make sense to put this in system buffers somewhere.
Yeah. System buffers text,
Yeah.
ASCII seems
Yeah.
reasonable to me as the ASCII helper, unless we think that we would need an ASCII namespace inside system buffers text, but I don't think we would add enough types that it would.
I would rather put this in system buffers than in system text if we were going to name it ASCII, honestly.
Yeah, I think honestly ASCII is a good, better type name, and then just
Yeah.
put it in system buffers text.
Oh, sorry, I was simply saying under system buffers text, if we thought we were going to have a namespace called ASCII, then we would not have the type called
I
ASCII.
don't think we need a namespace. I think we can just have a static type and put literally everything on the planet there.
Yep.
Do
What
we
else
need-
will we add there? Like
Here?
hypothetical, yeah.
We could probably add get hashcode methods to this. So like helper get hashcode methods, in case you wanted to put ASCII buffers in dictionaries. We would probably, what else do we add here?
Can we add one that takes a single byte and returns a byte?
For what?
Well, doing this upper or lowercase has a non-obvious better implementation that is kind of sprinkled throughout our code base.
Yes.
It might be useful just to have it located in one spot.
Oh, so take an individual ASCII byte and make it upper or lower?
Yeah.
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah, I mean, other things that could live here is you could just add, because you're
It
taking
is
the byte.
ASCII.
Well, yes, and you could give me the Unicode class so you can ask if this is a control character or whatever. But ASCII goes straight to char easily. It's just
Oh yeah, it's
straight
OID.
cast.
Yeah.
It might have less general utility, but one of the things we do quite a lot in HTTP is we convert a character span to a byte span while doing lowercase.
Yeah, so I do wonder if we want to add equality tests between ROS byte and ROS char.
Yeah, that would be fine. I was avoiding those on UTF-8 because there's a lot of handling in there, but here it will be very straightforward.
Because this would be, is this thing equal to this string that I've already
Sure.
defined?
So-
So I used string literal here.
So
and
equals
applied it.
ordinal ignore case ROS byte string, or ROS char.
ROS char and then also string so people
Yeah.
find it easier.
Okay, sure. I mean, stuff like that makes sense.
what about compare?
I mean, sure, we could add that too. I mean, these are all operations that make sense. They're just not part of this proposal.
Yeah.
If you, I put this proposal here because I know that you had mentioned you had these requirements in your work. But if you have other APIs that you think would be useful, like we could.
So these are the only ones that we needed, but I thought we were talking like now that we are shipping this type,
Yeah.
should it be kind of
Yeah.
complete, where you can go and see operations on ASCII buffers, as opposed to you go and you see kind of some random subset of operations on buffers than the Azure SDK team needed.
Yeah, if you mean
Okay.
compare as in like compared to ROS byte ASCII buffers, that makes sense, but compare ROS byte ROS char doesn't if the like it should have to throw if the substring left the ASCII because it can't answer the question anymore. Especially if you saw a surrogate.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, if you saw anything that didn't have a zero in the
Yeah,
and it's like I can't answer this question anymore.
It's
I don't know
a
what it
meaningless
means.
comparison, yeah.
Well,
So it
you
returns
could
in question
still
mark,
technically compare it, right?
You would have an
going
opinion
to-
of which one came first.
Yeah.
And so I think that if we wanted to add compare and compare ignore case for an ASCII buffer to an ASCII buffer, that makes sense. But compare an ASCII buffer to a string or string like makes less sense because you can't have a sensible. I mean, you can just document this is what we do if we
Yes.
see the nonsense.
So would we want not to have a skeleton type with these APIs for now? Would we want to go back and build up a fuller list of APIs before doing this work? It sounds like that's the consensus.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it seems
seems
okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so put this back to me then.
but
So,
system,
do we need an in-place API? Like, you could just pass the same buffer for source and destination.
How do you guarantee that you can access both of them?
having a specific in place does make it more obvious why you're passing the same thing into both, and that you do expect it, and that it's guaranteed to work instead of somehow
You'd have to read the documentation to know that you can pass the same
Yeah.
for source and destination.
Like if the implementation of in place is just call the other thing and like know that it works, like that's fine. That's an implementation detail, but the
And
the
that's
API
exactly
surface
what
of
it
this
would do.
provides clarity.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Works for me. But that is exactly what we do.
yeah.
This is
So,
what
yeah,
is it?
so, yeah,
3, 4, 1.
Corey, Christoph, if you had any particular APIs you want to add into
Nope.
this, just throw them into the issue description here.
So when punting it, we did have the opinion that it should be system.buffers.text.ascii.
And I made it capital A, lowercase SCII, because that generally follows acronym naming. But
Yeah.
if you prefer another thing, we can do that instead.
Like I was just looking to see if we had, if this one needed to be on the list of things that break the rules, but we should follow the meta rule of be consistent.
Yeah.
And the answer is half of our things that say ASCII only have a capital A and half of them have all caps. So let's go with the
But
better
do we already have system buffer text?
Yeah, we do.
Name
System
size?
buffers text UTF-8 parser.
Yeah. Base 64.
So this would sit next to UTF-8 parser, UTF-8 formatter.
Yeah.
I mean, that also means, in theory, this would go in the system buffers package, system memory, whatever that is.
Right.
Packages and namespace aren't necessarily the same, though having an opinion on where you want to put it is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can figure out how to ship this later, but it's a new type, so we pretty much have all the options we want.
So system memory.
'Cause if that package is already in trouble for being half in, half out, then like, we can add it to an in-only assembly.
Yeah. So does this capture everything we said, or is there anything missing?
I think it captures it. Yeah.
Okay. Then let's move on.
And it's missing like the compare buffers to strings, but
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we can
we can-
Yeah, I added dot, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I did not have a dot. Let me add
I'll
the dot.
spend some time. I'll spend some time with this and send an email around internally just to see if people are happy with the new shape. Cool.
All right, I added the dot. Now we're good. That one probably will be good to have Stephen here because he probably has opinions on this.
Oh, interesting.
Does anybody feel qualified to take this, or should we just postpone it until Steve is there?
It's an interesting scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You basically want to clone.
You just want to use the same storage as much as possible, I suppose.
What would ToArray return a key value to array?
Yeah, probably. I mean, what's weird about the
Oh,
their
yeah.
scenario here? The easy answer is they should just interlocked exchange their dictionary with null, and then dispose. If you have the dictionary, then dispose all of its members. You're not the only one talking about it.
I think the implementation here might be kind of tricky to make this actually performant because concurrent dictionary does not lock the whole dictionary when it's adding. So
Well,
Right.
unless it
you
needs
could
to
be
buffered.
calling ToArray and still adding
It-
stuff to it.
the ToArray and clear would need to take the ungrowing. Like there's the big lock that says like all operations are frozen now.
Yeah. There is a
But
comment.
at that point, what's the point of having this API?
There is a comment at the bottom of the thread about why simply replacing the field instance is insufficient.
Yeah, because then it basically means you cannot ever pass this field to anybody else.
Well, they were using it like their suggested implementation was dispose, and if your dispose is draining things out of your dictionary, why have you passed your dictionary to other people?
Yeah. Because also inside of your dispose method, like inside of a dispose method, the dictionary should no longer be mutated because the dispose method for no type is thread safe with other members on that type.
Generally, you would not call dispose, well, something
Yeah.
else. Well,
Well,
It's
again,
not
that's why,
necessarily true because like socket calling dispose is a standard way to cancel some operations.
Yeah,
so-
but that's a
Yeah,
special case.
but
Yeah.
again, you would write the dispose as interlocked exchange dictionary with null. Do you have the dictionary? Great, you get to go ask if any of its values were disposable and clear.
Yeah.
This is the classic problem of we never understand when to do cascade dispose. But
Yeah, this can all be solved through other means.
so either we can say no or wait for Steve.
Yeah.
But
What is the comment that one of you said that there's a comment that explains why?
Something about atomically replacing.
Yeah,
the
because
field.
even if you replace a field, at the time that you replace a field, somebody may have read the field and they might be attempting to write to the old dictionary while you're replacing it, which is totally fine. It just means that the old dictionary could continue to have things added to it.
fair enough.
Yeah,
You have
basically all
you have an in
access.
progress right.
Because it could end up in a register
Yeah,
somewhere.
all access to this field would need to be interlocked. Correct?
Yes.
Fair.
Interlock get, basically.
I don't know if there's a proper way to implement this while having any amount of performance still. The main problem I see is that you can start calling ToArray on a dictionary and assume that the dictionary is going to be cleared after that call.
Yeah.
The ToArray would use some state, and then if you call add at the right moment, the thing you added just gets lost. It's not in the array,
Right.
and it's not in the new dictionary.
I guess if you made it clear to array or whatever, then you would make it where it grabs the state that clears about to erase,
Yeah.
and then it just iterates over that state as effectively an independent dictionary. But that's probably going to be more expensive than clearing because it's just instead of setting something to 0 and nulling stuff out, it's probably going to have to go say, fine, go make a new bucket array so that I can ignore the rest of the state.
I still don't understand why he wants this in a atomic operation though. Why wouldn't you not in dispose just literally drain the dictionary?
Yeah, the dispose doesn't really make sense to me because this is just an extra allocation. That maybe he's passed the dictionary to other things that are still using it. That's
Like I mean, like if you have a
Again,
concurrent
you're
dictionary,
calling clear. They're not going to be using it.
yeah.
Like, I don't know that we have a give me a random value out of yourself.
I mean, this could be useful if you're just
Sure.
you have something that's producing values and then some other timer thing that just wants to grab all the values.
sure, but then in dispose, the first thing you would do is stop the other guy. And at that point, you can just draw because I mean, like otherwise, what is your dispose doing? Like you're disposing elements, but then somebody else is still adding elements to it. I mean, that seems really fucked.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of it in terms of using it with a disposable. I don't understand the disposable argument.
And then even if somebody else disposes it, dispose is supposed to be idempotent. So like it doesn't matter who calls dispose first. Like whoever calls it first wins. I mean, in fairness, maybe your dispose is not quite safe. But
Because the only thing that I can think of that would be weird is that the only thing that can return something so that you can actually enumerate it is to array. Because if you call get enumerator and it behaves like we say that we want get enumerator implementations to behave, if somebody else did modify it concurrently, your for each is going to fail.
I think get enumerator doesn't fail.
So get enumerator won't fail, but move next will fail.
Does
But
it?
not on
I thought-
concurrent collections.
Yeah, I
correct?
think concurrent dictionary
Okay.
is a special case to allow that.
Okay. Because then you would.
Well, I think what happens when you
time
enumerate,
where
you snapshot. You
That's a
enumerate.
snapshot?
Yeah, at the point you're enumerating, you snapshot, and then that's the state you're enumerating. That's why they're not they're not like cheap operations.
I think we reject it and ask for more details.
Well, so, but let's walk through this scenario.
Okay.
So let's say I want to dispose all objects in the collection.
Yep.
This implementation attempts to basically not miss a single item.
Yep.
if you don't have this method, how do you not miss? If
Well-
you don't have the proposed method, how do you not miss a single item?
Same as before. Like the first thing you need to do is stop whoever adds to the dictionary.
Well, but okay,
Because
so
that-
you need to have your own synchronization.
No, I mean like somebody. I mean, if somebody else has a reference to the concurrent dictionary and keeps adding to it,
Yes.
this code doesn't help you with that. It just
no
means
matter
at the
what you-
time you call dispose, you dispose everything in that.
You're gonna have a
But if
point in
somebody else
time,
keeps adding to it, then
no
you're
matter
still
what.
screwed.
What happens?
So you call, let's say we have the method, and so you say var obj equal, dict.clear to array, and some other method doesn't understand you're in the dispose state and completes an add that's in progress.
Yes.
Now the dictionary has one thing in it.
So one
You
thing
think
I
you're
didn't
disposed, you're
notice,
never
and
gonna dispose
I
of it.
don't know, is there a dispose on concurrent dictionary?
No.
No.
No. I see.
Because
It doesn't contain resources.
and then we would need policies of like, is it supposed to dispose all the keys, dispose all the values, both? Like,
Either.
yeah. Disposable values that didn't have disposable keys. Like, so no matter what, if you're like, there would still be a race condition of what does and doesn't get disposed by this dispose operation, because any in-flight adds are going to get, they're still going to be rooted to the dictionary.
Yeah.
But again, given that the dispose method, the outer dispose method on my class is not supposed to be called concurrently with any instance methods, if you're following standard design guidelines, it shouldn't be an issue.
No, but then I also don't understand why you need that to be atomic. Because if you want this operation to make sense, you have to stop anybody from taking things out of the dictionary. You have to
Yeah.
stop anybody who is adding to the dictionary. And at that point, you can just drain the dictionary.
Yeah.
So why would you need anything?
I
That
don't
makes
think
no sense.
You do need, like, I don't think the scenario is legitimate, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at.
What I would ask is if a ToArray and clear can be implemented efficiently without losing items when you're adding them, then it might have a valid value in some sort of producer-consumer environment. But if you can't do that efficiently and it requires essentially a global lock to be safe, then there's no point to
But
have
if you're doing producer-consumer, we have much better
channel and things
models
like that.
for that.
So,
Like,
Yeah.
nothing in here would say
Yeah.
that you had single take. Like, you can't, there's no give me the next thing. You have to ask for something by key. It's a dictionary.
Yep.
So I don't think the scenario makes sense.
Yeah, I think there are ways, given the scenario that they're going for, there are other ways, I think, for them to structure their code that makes it more reliable, even without making changes to the concurrent dictionary type.
If what they really, really, really wanted was this, then we would need to effectively make a clear that took a delegate of what do you want me to do with every key and value.
Yeah.
So I would ask in a comment to provide more context, because we may not know like what's basically there's not enough information here. What is the outer code doing?
No, they have, like, they actually have decent samples and decent scenarios. I just think they can be implemented differently.
Well, like, because try remove, we give you the value, I think.
Yeah.
So if you were doing some loop over all the keys that you can find and you call try remove, and then it gives you the values, and then you dispose the value. Like, you could do that. You had the key, you have the value. I think that the scenario they described here, I think, would be better solved by an overload of clear that took a delegate. Of what do you want me to do for absolutely everything as I'm clearing it. And if you call that one, then it's expensive because it's going to be a locked enumerate. And it's going to give you this is all the stuff that I'm erasing as of the time you call clear.
Yeah.
And like, fine.
Well, that kind of special cases it as some sort of dispose, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's some sort of what do you want to happen on every item in or every key value pair when you call clear. Dispose being an obvious thing that you would want to do on that one, but
Yeah.
Maybe you're logging. This is all the crap I just threw away. Yeah, so I mean that's just my the ToArray seems like an implementation specific thing of what they want, which is they want to act on every element during clear. That's a delegate. and it's an overload of clear, it's very obvious you called this one, and it's much, 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 much more expensive than the other one, because it will take whatever locks it needs for get enumerator, then call get enumerator, then call clear, release the locks. It was in a state, and now it'll for each invoke your.
Ben also made a point, which is if you really want to do what the person is stating here, you can just literally assign to the, like, keep a reference to the dictionary and then assign a new dictionary to the underlying field, and then now it's yours. You can just party on it.
Again, like there's technically a slight race with any in-progress modifications, but that's
Sure, but
concurrent
that's-
dictionary. It always has slight races with concurrent.
You
But
also
that's supposed to
have
be
in
safe,
progress
right?
modifications in a disposable.
You don't know. You made a type, you threw it in a thread pool, you're done with it, you're shutting the thing down, this thread pool's still acting on it. The
Yeah, but
next request is
that
no
is, aside from very specific edge cases like socket, like we very clearly say in the documentation for the dispose pattern, like dispose is never intended to be thread safe. Make sure every instance method is finished before you call it.
Anyway, so
Sounds good. Then
yeah,
we
maybe there's room for a callback firing clear, but I don't think that we need an allocating clear and
yeah,
clear
it
and
seems.
copy.
Anyway, all right. So, Christoph, here's your.
Oh, yes, please.
You can add your.
I've implemented this at least twice.
All right.
Is Christoph on the phone?
He's not.
I mean, it seems we have a wait for exit that takes a timeout, then
Yeah, right now you need to wire up an event. Like you can do this yourself. It's just not
do we need tasks for
not
this?
easy.
Does it make it easy?
I mean,
Task as opposed to what?
Pool that takes a cancellation token?
No, this is about having an async method.
So there is process wait for exit right now, correct?
so you haven't you can
Yes.
call
Yeah.
exit and then just wait for an event to fire.
Okay,
That's
so
how you
so
do it.
so this is about yielding the current task and
Yeah.
so okay. I was just looking at it as like using cancellation token as an alternative of the timeout parameter.
Yeah, the way you would use this is you would maybe close the standard input and then wait for some console app to finish processing.
Seems fun.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, how do we compose cancellation token and timeout? Does everybody has to do that?
You can create a.
If you
I mean,
want,
that is one way to do
yeah.
it.
So usually you're given a cancellation token and you're forwarding it, or if you're creating one to represent a timeout, then you do that. And if you want to merge a timeout with a cancellation token someone gave you, then you do the like CTS.combine, go make the timeout one and the one they gave me.
But that's a decent amount of code if you want to do that, right? There's no
yeah,
single
it's not
API
fun.
that says, give me a new cancellation token that combines this cancellation token with that timeout,
I
right?
mean, we could, if we cared, we could add cancellation token dot combined with timeout, and
That time.
So there, I believe Steve Tobe wrote a while back an extension method that allows you to await an arbitrary handle. Because a process is a handle, you could use this extension method to do that.
yeah, but
What do you wait for?
People don't
Until the
understand.
handle is closed, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just asking because if you already have an existing API that takes the timeout, it seems like maybe we should have an overload that takes the timeout and the cancellation token. If you think
Yeah.
that if many people need to pass on the timeout,
maybe.
then
It's
you
just-
probably don't want to have everybody have that wiring code,
Oh, you mean inside that it should do
the forwarding, yeah.
I have a cancellation token and a timeout, so I'll make the combined cancellation token and then keep going.
We
Yeah.
do that in HTTP client, and it's just not fun. If you want to throw like an object canceled exception, you then have to inspect which cancellation token was thrown,
Yes,
and
what
it's just not
was
nice.
the token that timed out equal to the token that you gave it?
Yeah,
Because that's the did I hit cancel or did some timeout fire?
Wait, are you saying have both parameters on the method, both the timeout and the cancellation token?
Yeah, but
I'm saying I would rather not do that. I would rather just have a cancellation token.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm asking. Like, if many people want to do timeouts, though, then it's annoying, right?
But I think that like cancellation token already has enough value for it, and if people say that, hey, why is there no timeout here, and they don't understand cancellation, we can add the overload later.
Yeah, I would
I would
rather
kind of
extend cancellation token and add this, add timeout
Yeah.
method.
The thing about that is you can't cancel the cancellation token. You need a cancellation token source to do it, but whatever.
Well, but cancellation token dot combined with timeout can return a new CTS. But again, why if you all that you want is the timeout, you actually don't want the source. You just want the timeout.
Yeah.
Because you don't want the ability to go pulse it into the canceled state. You just want to save time box's operation. I like it as is.
Yeah, we had a discussion on the Azure SDK team, and we decided to just use cancellation tokens for timeout scenarios.
I feel like it makes APIs more consistent.
So, I don't have an opinion on that. All I'm saying is that the existing API takes a timeout too, right? So if the person has a timeout today, then it's basically a little bit more annoying to use.
Yeah, it would be good to have a helper. I agree with that.
But that's a different
I mean, I wouldn't say no to another overload that's just a timeout. I would say
Right.
no to one that's cancellation token, comma, timeout.
Yes, I
That
agree with
is
that.
fair,
I
I
agree with
suppose.
that.
Again, like if you have a general helper to combine it, like I also don't, I don't mind that.
I don't
too.
like the overload with just timeout. And the reason for it is we have guideline
Yeah, I
that
think we
says you
could
should
skip
take cancellation tokens to async methods.
Yeah. And since
Okay, so
cancellation
just-
token already encompasses timeout.
So just start with this one
Yeah.
for now, and
And again, if people say where did the timeout support go, that means that we have an indication that people don't understand that cancellation tokens support timeouts, and then maybe we need to make that easier to use, not sprinkle timeout overloads all throughout the universe.
There are a few issues, I think, that indicate that already.
Yeah, we already know that.
Yeah.
Probably not many people know that they can use cancellation tokens for timeouts.
If only we had the PM for the task engine on the phone. But apparently it's not good.
Well, there's such a thing called as vacation. All right, so then I guess this is approved as is, right?
Yep. And there's cancellation token not timeout after. I mean, that's exactly. I knew the cancellation token source function.
Yeah.
Isn't it cancellation
So-
token source dot timeout after?
One,
think
just
cancellation
one.
Apparently, timeout after is a ASP.NET. It's in Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Testing. So
Okay. We have
So,
kind of the same.
they have indicated timeouts could be easier.
So just one question. I kind of maybe we discussed it. What's the behavior when the cancellation token is triggered?
do we
just-
just cancel?
Yeah, you get
We
the
just
cancel task.
we don't throw operation cancelled exception, correct?
The task transitions into a canceled state.
If you await the task,
It
that
does.
will throw the so the cancellation token going into the or getting canceled,
Yes.
the task is allowed to complete successfully because there's a race condition, or it goes into the canceled state. And if you await a task that's in the canceled state, it throws
Operation cancel.
operation
Operation
cancel
cancel.
exception. Technically, it throws a canceled exception, but Steve will yell at you if you catch it.
Well, so because so async methods that like do something, right? Let's say send. When cancellation token is triggered, well, the send operation kind of didn't complete. Nothing was sent. Therefore, we throw operation cancelled exception.
Yeah.
When somebody waits for the process to exit,
And they canceled the wait.
and they cancel, but through a timeout.
Yes.
It's back to these exceptions. There's no way to tell, correct, the difference.
Well, then all you know is that the cancellation token was triggered, and you don't know what triggered it.
Yeah.
And then you can ask the OCE what token triggered this exception, because that information is captured. And so if you gave it a non-timeout token, it would tell you not your
If you
token.
have the
Yeah,
tokens.
so
Okay, yeah,
for
yeah,
example, like if you
yeah.
just use like a TCS under the covers, like the cancellation token is actually provided as a parameter to set cancel.
Yeah.
So stuff like that would work.
So you can tell it's a little ugly. We don't have there's no like, that the reason was a timeout, but you also don't know, like, you couldn't know that anyway, because if you had a custom timer that fired the cancel, so you can only ask, was this canceled because I asked it to be canceled?
Yeah. And the thing is that due to the way that process termination works like that method is, the task is either going to transition to canceled or successfully completed. It can never transition to faulted. Because the process either finishes or it doesn't.
Well, if you cancel something, it can go into any of the states. There's always there's a race condition between its marking itself into the exception state and it noticed that the cancellation token fired.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just because you called CTS.cancel doesn't mean you get back a canceled task. It can be faulted. It shouldn't.
The cancellation
not
may
still
not
be
be
fine.
observed.
We would not have any code paths that fault that TCS in this method. We would probably document that. You should never expect that task to end up in a faulted state.
You can always expect any task to end up in a faulted state. If we in the middle of the operation of it, it goes into a faulted state.
Okay, sure. I mean, at that point, your process is dying, so whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, there's not really an exception. I can imagine that.
If
throwing
you
out.
aren't allowed to wait on the handle, if you have inspect but not wait permission on that handle, then
Then the method itself should throw a synchronous exception.
it's not a usage exception. Only usage exceptions throw synchronously out of async methods.
That's a usage exception. The state was invalid to call that operation. And we knew that synchronously at the time the method was called.
Maybe. That's the semantic. Well, Christoph talks in detail in the book about the difference between runtime exceptions and usage exceptions. The distinction is left as an exercise to the reader. Argument exception is clearly a usage
I
exception.
did not listen to this conversation because I was looking at the next issue.
Invalid operation exception is one of the two.
Well, I guess the difference is that, like, is it statically knowable, right? Embedded operations, usually it's a combination of factors that at the time you checked was true, but at the time you ran it was no longer true, right? Like, it's hard to statically determine those things.
If you think that the permission check on the wait handle can be written in the method preamble, then it would be a usage exception.
Yeah.
If you only find out after you call wait and you're already committed to the task at that point, then that's a runtime exception. And it would be inside the task instead of outside the task.
Right.
So.
All right, so this one, since Chris already read it, he can probably walk us through it, right?
Implement IBufferWrite on MemoryStream. What could go wrong?
IBufferWrite.
I feel like having them be public would not be great. I would prefer explicit implementation if we did do this.
So why do we need this? Don't we have an array buffer writer now? Isn't that effectively the exact same thing as MemoryStream?
No, it doesn't resize. I don't think array buffer writer resizes, correct?
Correct. Actually, I think it does.
Also, it doesn't implement
thought it was a
stream,
growing
so you
buffer.
can add. This one, I think the scenario is you can interrupt easily.
So you want something that is both a stream and a buffer writer?
Yeah, for example, you write using IBufferWriter and then you pass it to an API that reads it as a
Yes,
stream.
it will resize. Array buffer writer resizes.
Oh,
It just doesn't use the array tool.
Don't we
what
have...
doesn't use array tool?
Array buffer writer.
Well, this also doesn't use array.
Right,
tool,
right.
Okay.
Didn't we have a method like as stream?
Yeah, I think between
There's something new in .NET 5.
because array buffer writer is like a sequence thingy, and then we have the stream sequence to make a stream-like API for sequence thingies, and like this is already doable. MemoryStream is already super special. I hate IBufferWriter, so I vote no.
We do have.
You just jumped to a bunch of conclusions that I can't follow. Like you're saying,
We do have
there's a
a
sequence
separate
thingy
record.
somewhere, and we already have a thingy for the thingy, and that's why we don't want it. Like
You
that
can already
seems-
accomplish this using types other than MemoryStream. So
yeah, can you outline what those types are? Because I cannot
So
connect
array
the dots.
buffer writer.
Yes.
By the way, if we did this, we'd have to move IBufferWriter basically down in the system runtime.
Yeah, ignore that part for a moment, but like that's a different problem.
So there is or was supposed to be a type. So array buffer writer is going to be a sequence, I think.
No, it's literally ImmutableHashSet is just including IBufferWrite.
Okay, does not have a sequence property hanging off of it.
No, it does not.
How do you get the data back?
You can get the array. Or you can get the written data as a memory of T or a span of T.
And also, it's not a sequence. It's a contiguous array.
But we did have a sequence writer. I think that's what he's talking about, right? Didn't we not?
Mm.
I don't know if such a thing ever shipped.
So one of the things we've reserved the right to do in MemoryStream is potentially back it with something other than a contiguous array. All the API design on MemoryStream up to this point has been try for getting out a contiguous array. So if we expose things like get span and get memory, that would either it would be exposing that array in places where we don't today. For instance, if we take a user array and then we grow it, today we won't expose it, but this would expose it. And then it would also prevent us in the future from backing it with, say, a linked list of arrays, if we decided to do that.
It wouldn't. The get span and get memory here would only be for the writable,
The next
remaining part of your buffer.
I see. It's just a
It's give me a place to write.
Yeah.
Because it's not designed for MemoryStream. It's designed for IBufferWriter. So it's,
I see. So okay, there's a usability case there for these
Right, so-
methods.
But that's why
To
these should be
me,
explicit.
I had
That's why
assumed
I'm
it's
saying
got the
explicit,
whole backing
like-
thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna mix well with the stream model, like the reader and the writer in it, like because how does get span and write, how do they interact?
Well,
Not
how
at
do
all?
write and write async interact?
Mm.
Well, on MemoryStream, write async is synchronous, so they interact the way that write and write interact, which is sequentially.
I was just saying we have many of these how do they interact problems which always are resolved. You have to
Yeah.
know, be careful and don't
Right.
intermix things that don't work
Or we
together.
have sequence reader. That's
But
what
having
we
said that, I do agree with the usability issue. And also I agree with like if we should ask David why array buffer writer would not work for him.
The other question that I have is like Eric just mentioned that we reserved the right of memory stream to have non-contiguous memory. I don't think that's why we have try. I think the reason we have try is because there's this overload on the constructor where you can basically say is the underlying array
Yeah.
private or not, which
Is it exposed? So I mentioned that
orthogonal
too.
to that.
But we do reserve the right to do it. Like
Yeah.
we've
Yeah,
actually
work
rejected serializable changes that tried to add serializable back to this because we've considered it a reasonable thing to do to in the future.
I see.
And
All right.
the fact that we might split it up, I agree. It's orthogonal to this now that I understand that these APIs are giving you the next span to write to, because that will work if it's not
If it's
contiguous.
the next span to write to, then we could add
Yep.
these as they return the next thing from the link. Like they add a new node to the link
Understand.
list and over there.
But
Yeah, I understand.
so maybe it would be better, and we should ask David, to just add a method on array buffer writer
But
to give you a stream.
yeah, or something.
But then it would have to probably be still party on the same data, right? Because you probably want to pass to some consumers the stream, and then later on, you want somebody else to use the IBufferWrite so they can basically
I think if we
disjoint
wanted
things,
to
right?
make a buffer writer stream to do this, that would be fine. But like buffer, so we wrote the guidance after IBufferWriter had shipped, but the IBufferWriter breaks our guidance. It creates a span out of nowhere. There's no ownership semantic on the span. You don't know when it is and isn't safe to still write into the span. You don't know when writing into the span is actually still the same span that belongs to the IBufferWriter, especially if it's a pooled implementation. It can now be back in the array pool. This type is, I don't want us to ever add any other implementations of this type if I can help it. And I definitely don't want it on MemoryStream.
Right.
That type is way too in people's faces.
Well, let me try to capture what you just said. You're saying you
I
don't
will
want.
object to the strength of what he said.
I'm holding back the sweat.
Don't worry, I marked this stream as not safe for children. You can swear as much as you want.
Well, if you wanted to do this yourself, it would be what, 2 lines of code to you just create the array buffer writer, and then you create a memory stream based on the array that returned. So
And MemoryStream isn't sealed,
you're not saving much by doing this.
so you could do this yourself with get span returns a temporary buffer, and when they call advance, you call write and push it into the memory stream. So extending memory stream to be a buffer writer memory stream.
Look how many upvotes are for this issue.
Well, how many of those came from
ASCII.
And 2 votes to ship it.
No, there's 2
Is that
votes
what
to
the
launch
rocket
it into
means?
space, which I think means don't ship it. That's how I read it.
There you go. Now it has a thumbs down.
When does it? When?
It updated on my display.
Emo's had it open too long.
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, there's 2. I don't know how that happened. Why do you need a memory stream? Why is array buffer writer not sufficient for your scenarios? Do you actually need an?
So who upvoted it?
They broke the tooth again. The biggest one there.
The usual.
Yeah, Ben Adams, Aslan.
What is he? Smart
What
people are
question? An alternate implementation could be to get if that would just expose a buffer writer off of the memory stream. So if it was either implemented explicitly or returned an object that implemented this over memory stream, do we think that that's any better?
Now you're going to get
No.
complaints that there's an extra allocation.
Well, it wouldn't have to be
Well,
an
it could be a
extra
struct.
allocation.
Return this.
Could be a struct.
Yes.
Yeah, or return a struct inside this, or
Implement explicitly and then return this.
If it returns
Yeah.
a struct, you can't override the behavior.
if it is. I mean, if it's virtual and it returns an IBuffer writer, then it's virtual and returns an IBuffer writer.
Now it's an allocation.
So, like, what was the proposal? You would have a method that is on where?
Yeah, with box.
On IBufferWriter that basically says.
Or just implement it explicitly.
You have a memory
Let's
stream
go that way.
get buffer writer.
Or implement it explicitly is probably the cheapest way, right?
Oh, I see. So you would have something on a stream that gives you buffer writer. Actually, that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't like the type and don't want it to proliferate.
Okay.
And because like IBufferWriter was the thing that really pushed the JSON writer over the edge of like this is massive memory, like this is now a memory corruption type, and then we had to go redesign it and lose the interface when we did it.
The issue was with usage of the pools and not with this
That's why it
type.
was memory
Like
corruption.
I think your dislike of the type is influenced by the implementation that was using the pool.
No, just like nothing in the interface because it's an interface, and as a smart person once said, interfaces define syntax and not semantics.
Yeah.
Nothing says what the behavior is if you've called getspan twice. You don't know if the previous one you can still use it. You don't like it's so especially if you have an IBuffer writer, you use it here. You call some other method, and it could possibly interact with the same object. You need to know by the universe of whether or not it's okay to continue using the span.
I don't think that's true. At some point, we didn't have the semantics described, and then Asom described it, and he promised to put it in the docs. I don't know if they exist or not, but I know that he worked on kind of collecting all the. I mean, we had a meeting about what the semantics should be for.
Right. It's
for the
if
question
someone
that
else
you-
has called get span, you need to not use the span that you used, but you don't know if someone else has called get span.
I don't know.
See,
If it is.
that's not obvious to me. I would have said that you can use it until you call advance.
That is true. You can use it till you call advance.
Or
That is
someone
actually
else
true.
calls get span. Yeah.
What?
Or someone else calls get span.
Like that isn't
Oh.
obvious to me. I don't know why
You
you
just
Because
would ever do that. But
you. What do you mean?
I believe IBufferWriter actually takes a size hint.
yes.
And if they pass a bigger size hint and it needs to reallocate, then it's made it like it's tossed away this thing and it's never going to actually use it again.
The size hint is not a requirement, though. You can return smaller, I believe.
Yes, but if they call it with a no, size hint is a minimum.
Yeah, you can return larger, you can't return smaller.
And so if you call get span 5 and then something else calls get span 5,000 and it actually had to go make a new destination, the previous span is never going to actually, if you write to it and call advance, that data's lost because it doesn't care anymore. It replaced it on the next call to get span.
Yeah.
So all of these methods destroy any results from the other methods. And
Do you know how many not thread safe APIs we have in the .NET framework? Half of them.
yes, but this one's not sequentially safe.
Only half.
What do you mean it's not sequentially safe? One caller would do what you said?
If you
Of
call
course,
get
that's
span,
a bug
you call
in
a helper
your
method.
that's a bug in your sequential code.
Yeah.
All right, we're not
Yeah.
reviewing IBufferWriter.
Anyway, I think that array buffer writer should solve the needs. I would like to know why we need it on MemoryStream. It would involve moving the interface already, and somebody doing this themselves, it's like 20 lines of code. Because MemoryStream's not sealed.
All right. I think we discussed this to death. I said I added the question at the bottom. I said API needs work, and then we can see how bad the response is going to be. How strong the person wants this API. He might actually run down any moment now.
NetworkStream.Socket.
So it's useful to have the socket for a NetworkStream because then you can call shutdown or set options on the socket, things like that. We have at least one implementation that derives from NetworkStream purely to expose this socket internally.
As long as we're aware of the state that because it's exposed, somebody can call close now and mess up the stream.
Love this feature.
One reason we may not want to do this is that Quick is coming, and Quick will not have a socket, meaning that NetworkStream is essentially not just NetworkStream, it's more like a socket stream.
If we make it public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's going to soon be, you believe a soon implementation of NetworkStream that is not socket-based, I think that would be confusing enough to people that we should not make it public.
Yes.
Well, so would we consider making it try? Because this is a very powerful feature.
Yeah, this
Try and
is
get socket seems fine, but I'm just like having a property that all of a sudden goes from having never been null before to can be null depending on the protocol. I think that's a very confusing change. To
Well,
bring with someone.
we haven't decided to use NetworkStream for quick streams. I'm just saying that if we do this, it would tie it specifically to socket and remove the possibility of using
But it's
it
not
with other
quite
things.
that, right? Because you already have a socket property. It's just protected. So what happens if you derive from that? What does the property return at that point?
Yeah,
If
that's
you
interesting.
derive from it, then you're the one making it.
Yeah, then the quick protocol wouldn't have given that to you.
Yeah.
Sure, but like if I derive from Quick protocol, like what do I get?
Null.
Well, you can't right now. Quick would just return a stream.
So then why is it a network stream then?
Well,
Anyway,
So-
try seems fun.
a reason you might do this, you might not do this, is we could add, for instance, a shutdown method to NetworkStream and have it be generic for both sockets and Quick.
Sure, but that still means somebody can derive from that type.
Yeah, so if you're deriving from this type, then go ahead and use the socket. That's not an issue. I think that there's a kind of a more general problem with how we expose properties through streams. Like, you can compose streams really easily, and then you lose all the properties. So this is not like the perfect solve, but this would be super useful to have, to be able to get the socket out of the stream.
I'm confused now. You're saying having
I'm saying that
properties
there's
is
pros
problematic,
and
but it would
cons.
be very, very
Pros and
useful.
cons, right? Like, it's very useful to have the socket here, because then you can shut down set options, you know, all the low-level stuff you might need.
I think in general the problem with streams is like, I think you consume streams via one of two ways. Either you know exactly the stream you're consuming because it's an implementation detail, right? Like, you know, you call file open read, right? You know you get a file stream, right? Like that's a given. At that point, having the data on that stream that represents the underlying thing you're doing seems generally useful, right?
Yep.
The other mode is you consume everything through a generic stream where you don't know what the implementation is. At that point, you just, you know, in the abstraction mode, and you can always downcast. That seems reasonable. The problem is when you compose streams, it makes sense to lose the properties because it completely depends on how you're composing this guy, right? I mean, if you have a buffering thing or if you're a compressing thing, then that completely changes what the data represents to begin with, right? So to me, that's not necessarily at odds.
Yeah.
It might suck for network streams because if the networking client you're using has transparent decompression, then, well, what stream are you getting back? Are you getting back the networking stream or are you getting the gzip decompressing stream, right? Because then you lose the underlying socket data.
Right.
But arguably that's already the case because
Yeah, we're not
at that point you
making
can no
any
longer mix
worse.
and match, right? Like you're
Do we
in.
return network stream anywhere in HttpClient?
No.
No, correct.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
On content?
No, we return HttpContent stream. It's like 3
And that's not
possible
derived from
streams we can
network stream?
return. No.
So who's giving a network stream today?
Well, network stream would be like TCP client. That returns a network stream. Otherwise, you can just construct your own based on a socket.
Do you know where Stephen's consuming that? Like what APIs is he using that gives him a socket stream that he wants the underlying socket?
Well, we are using this API in HTTP client already. We are deriving from network stream so that we can get at that protected property and make it public.
So it sounds like he's using socket's HTTP handler, but like if you have a socket's HTTP handler, how do you ever get a network stream?
We use streams to compose like compression or SSL. So we don't tend to operate on sockets in the socket's HTTP handler. We operate on streams for the most part. The socket is only used for minimal purposes like setting options.
So is he saying he wants to use the socket property in our own implementation of networking stack?
It's not like a niche thing that's only used internally. It would just be useful to have.
You know, I don't know that. All I'm saying is that if there's no API that gives you a network stream, how is making this property useful? Because if you never have an instance of network stream, like how do you ever call this guy?
When you use TCP client and you accept the connection, you get the network stream.
Sure,
So
but like the example that Steve mentions is socket HTTP handler, right? In which case you still don't have.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking. I was asking whether on HTTP client we know that we have those handlers. We expose it somewhere.
Because TCP client is fairly specialized.
He's giving that as an example of where this API would be used. Essentially, it just saves you from having to have both a copy of the network stream and the socket. In this case, we could just have one stream and not keep two.
But his example is
around
within the implementation of sockets HTTP, not the consumers of HTTP client.
Yes, this is not consumer.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Yeah, I mean, I generally speaking don't have an objection to this property. I mean, like I think we can make it public without any breaking change because it's not a virtual API, so nobody had to repeat the protected keyword ever. And they've done the same thing on exception when we made error code public, I think, at some point. So it seems fine. So, Christopher, what is your view on that? Fine, not fine?
I think it's fine. It's a bit dangerous, but I assume
I'm
we will look through all the corner cases.
Well, our corner cases are if you use the socket, then various things might just stop working, and it's on you.
Yeah, it's like the IBufferWrite stream we discussed. If you mix reading from a stream and reading from the socket, I don't know what happens, correct?
Yeah.
That may be tricky.
Shit, what is your handle? Oh, yeah, here we go. How is quick spelled? Just QUIC?
Yes. And quick is in progress, experimental now. If it turns out we want to use NetworkStream, we can always adjust later on.
Delete this.
And why in quick implementation we cannot return give you the stream?
It's not that we can't give you a stream. We do give you a stream.
I mean, not stream the socket.
The implementations that we're using, we're not implementing it ourselves. They hide the socket from us.
Oh, I see. So it's just an implementation.
Yeah.
issue. So who's implementing it?
There are a few options. There is Cloudflare has one, Google has one, Facebook has one, and we have one.
So we're gonna have a dependency on an
native
external library from
dependency.
BCL APIs?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We're going to include a native DLL in the box somewhere.
We already have that everywhere else.
Oh, native. It's gonna be a native. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do for compression, and that's what we do for crypto. All right, so. Holy fuck. Why is there that many APIs? Is there that many APIs? Oh, that's not
I mean, it seems reasonable to me.
Okay, that's annoying.
Yeah, that seems
where certain bit combinations are nonsensical. So for single and double, it makes sense.
well, it would be reinterpret cast if the NDNS matches.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if the NDNS doesn't match, we'll swap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do we care about any alignment? What do we do with alignment here?
They're unaligned, same as the other binary primitives APIs.
Yeah, we got what we decided.
Yeah, so binary primitives right now on things like long int whatever, if they're not naturally aligned, it still works just fine. It doesn't unalign reading right.
And if we run on a processor that falls on the line,
it's handled correctly.
we handle everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So currently we don't run on such processors, but the plan of record is that if we do run on such processors, these under the covers are using the read unaligned APIs, which would emit the correct code gen to not fault when it crosses a natural alignment boundary.
Well, unless those chips, at some point I looked into it, you can set them in a mode that they
Yes, but I believe that even those processors have a special instruction that says, like, this might be unaligned, please don't fault even in the process. And we would even add. So it'll all be handled. And like I spoke with Tanner about this too. If for whatever reason we can't emit that, we'll just do the fix up ourselves in software.
Yep.
It's not the end of the world.
Did we talk about reverse endianness?
For double and float?
Can we just use the N64 one? Does it?
We would do that under the covers.
Well, should we add overloads that is reverse endianness for
Double
float and double? Because we have them for every other primitive type.
Seems like a bit rarer of a thing to need, but
it's not going to be as efficient as the other reverse endianness APIs, unfortunately.
Why not?
Because doubles and floats are not stored in the same registers that integers are.
So you have to first load them from the...
You actually have to stack spell in order to make that work, I believe.
I see. Honestly, I don't even know why we need the reverse endianness APIs. Where do you use them?
You're storing stuff. You're sending stuff across the network.
And why would I call reverse rather than make it X? Like make it big endian, make it little endian?
So reverse endianness is an reverse endianness is just a like utility helper API.
Right.
And these call under the covers, and we just made them public.
But I remember we had this discussion,
Yeah.
and there was a reason why we made them public.
well,
It was
one
not just because we have them.
one
there
thing
was-
I might do is if I have a pointer to a struct, and the struct is memory mapped storage or whatever, then I have a float in my struct, but I need to reverse it before I actually use it.
Yeah, but then again, like why didn't you just call try write or write, given the span?
Well, you wouldn't be operating on a byte buffer in that case. You would have just a pointer to a struct.
Yeah. You could always create a span around it, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. Whereas if you had a proper reverse endianness API, you could just do reference a pointer. And
Yeah, but it's less efficient, right? Because you basically have to first load and store and then...
Does Ben have any opinions on this? I know
We're getting a span from a pointer
What
makes...
we would do here
a
under
little
the
more
covers
sense.
is you could call reverse endianness of int or long rather than reverse endianness of single or double, because we would try to keep everything in a single register as much as possible, and then only do the stack spill once at the very end of the method.
I think you need to spill a stack. I think you can just reinterpret the single as an int into a register directly. Either way, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, there must be a load from a floating point register to a regular register, right?
I'm pretty sure there is.
While doing conversions.
No, you just load it and then you modify the register, right?
Yeah, so you would move to an integer register, do the byte swap, and then move back to
Yeah.
some
I mean, load and store between registers should be... I mean, I'm not an expert, but that seems like a no-brainer to have.
I mean, between the same type of register, you just have to rename it, but I don't know what it's like when you move between floating point register and integer.
So my other question is, should we just add them or should we not?
I would say we should approve these APIs and ask
Yeah.
Eric
These ones we should approve, definitely.
and Tanner basically should we have the other ones for parity as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the code gen for reinterpret casting between an int and a float, and it is not pleasant. Mainly because floating point nowadays uses vectorized registers.
Yeah.
Or uses SIMD registers. And in order to load anything into a SIMD register, you're basically stack spilling.
Yeah, so you can use like extract to do it without touching stack, at least on x86. I don't know about ARM.
Yeah, that instruction is really slow.
And I think there's one if you're just operating on single versus a vector register that is different. But yeah, I agree. Let's just approve these and look at those later, maybe.
All right. So kids.
So we're just spanifying all the things basically.
Mhm.
What does it return? What is the int?
The number of bytes sent or received.
So you can pass in a 4K buffer, but it only provides 4 bytes?
Yep.
And then what is my expectation? I slice?
Yeah.
So for the array one, people had to literally create a new array, copy the data, and then call it again?
No, we had overloads that take int.
Yeah, we have
Ints.
overloads with offset and size. This just
I see. So it's the same thing. You just have a running int, and then you just slice.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you pass the endpoint as a ref?
Because for receive from, you need to know which endpoint sent you that datagram for UDP.
So why is that not out then?
Historical reasons, likely. I had this exact conversation with Jeremy, wondering why it wasn't an out to begin with.
Like ref seems always very weird. It's like you need to put it, but also telling you something. It's like, well, which one is it?
What about async versions?
Yep, there are async ones down
You know?
below these. If you want to scroll down.
Yeah, we have. Oh, sorry, on the long screen again. I honestly think we fucked this one up.
There's no reason it couldn't be an out, as far as I can think.
No, I mean, I didn't mean the out. I meant the fact that we put all the async ones as extension methods. I think we fucked this one up.
Oh, they are extension methods.
Yeah.
Because, so I know why we did it. Because originally the implementation didn't need access to anything, and then we wanted to OOB it on the .NET Framework side, and that's where we ended up. But like, I think as a long-term maintenance, it's a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's not nice.
What was you said the original reason we did it is because we could. Well, what was the reason?
No, the original
It's not a
reason
good
was
reason.
so the original reason was you wanted async APIs on Socket on .NET Framework without shipping a new version of the framework.
Oh, okay.
And so
okay.
that's why
Now I
we
understand.
and the implementation you can make work by just doing async over sync, right? And then now I think they have some internal access, so it's a bit of a hack. It's a
Should we then not continue with this? And just
I think that's the question I asked last time. Should we stop doing this craziness and just put them
Yeah.
where they belong and then move
If
on?
you look at a lot of these, they're just forwarding to.
I think that's
internal
yeah.
methods
No,
on
actually,
Socket
that's what David told me. Yeah. So they already are instance methods, and these guys are just basically just calling the instance methods that are internal.
Yeah.
That's all that happens right now. So we have the API in 2 places.
well, internal. The other one is you said internal.
Yes.
But what is the reason for not adding these directly as instance methods?
Just consistency with existing APIs.
Anybody cares?
That's why I said last time. To me, I would just stop doing this. I would
We would
just
say span APIs are, the new APIs, and they are in the place where they should be.
So then.
The other APIs are basically a bridge for, this .NET framework.
So then
in fact,
we
I would
take
also make
everything
the
in this extensions class and make public instance methods on Socket.
yeah. I would
And
just
say stop using this extensions
Yes.
class.
because the compiler already does the right thing. They hide the extension methods when you have matching instance methods.
Mhm.
Like because everybody who looks at Socket right now is like, why are there no async methods?
Yeah, it's
well,
confusing.
there are, but you have to know where they are.
I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I think we need more people in the room to decide.
Yeah, let's do the following. Let's just split this into 2 halves, and let's just say the APIs themselves look fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that, as far as we can tell.
And I assume this is for consistency, but the name receive message from async is weird. Like why there's from? What does the from
Oh, the
mean?
from is the receive and the receive from are distinct because from is the connectionless version. So you're receiving it from some endpoint out there.
Ah, I see.
the result there contains the endpoint that you received it from.
I see. Yeah, not very descriptive, but
Those are the names from the Berkeley sockets.
I see. They take the endpoints as parameters, correct?
Yeah, but for async we have to we can't take by ref. So.
Yeah. Another question. So we have this type called read-only sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So when you send, you can now send multiple buffers. Is that correct? Oh no. Do you support?
We do have a
multi-buffer
version
send?
that takes I believe an array segment of arrays.
Yes. Yes.
It wouldn't be terrible to have something that takes read-only sequence because the OS APIs do support that.
Exactly. And then on the receive side, would it make sense as well? No,
Yeah.
it wouldn't because we don't have read-write sequence.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
unfortunately.
But the multi-buffer send would be good.
Yeah.
Can we add it to this proposal?
Let's make a separate one, maybe,
Yeah, let's make a separate one.
because this is not just a straightforward map. All right, I think I call it a day because we have 5 minutes left now.
Really, it's not straightforward. It's just an overload of send
Of which one?
or send to
Well, we also have
or send.
send, and
I mean, if people feel strongly, I mean, I just hit it with one ear because my other ear was busy me.
Basically, we
Thinking.
have the APIs that take arrays. There is an API that takes multiple arrays.
Mhm.
And we don't, now that we are adding span overloads, I'm saying we should add a span version of the one that takes multiple arrays.
Well, basically,
How do you do that?
every send method
What
that
do you
we
mean?
have
It
here
takes
would
an
have
array.
another overload that takes read-only sequence.
What do you have? A
A
span
span
up?
of arrays, you mean?
No. So the API today, it takes an array of
It's like an array
array
segment
segments.
of arrays, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Array of read segments.
Yeah.
Of array segments.
Sure.
that sounds right.
And so a corresponding thing for these APIs would be to either take an array of memory of T or take read-only sequence.
Mhm.
One of those two. I don't know what's our preference. Maybe array of memories. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to taking read-only sequence.
It's-
It
think
would
about-
add another overload
Yeah.
to like 15 APIs.
It's so, but the API is significantly more efficient. Like I actually did some measurements once because we implemented our own HTTP stack,
Yeah.
and you would store, like for example, headers and the request line in one buffer and then content in another buffer, because often you need to add more headers after you write the
That makes
content,
sense.
and then you want to send them in one call. It's a very expensive interrupt call, and literally, like almost the size of the buffers doesn't matter. It just matters whether you call the API once or twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
You,
It's
they want the
very
API to be as non-chatty as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing about read-only sequence is if you have a bunch of buffers, building a read-only sequence from them is a decent number of allocations, which people nowadays find off-putting.
The thing is that array of memory.
You can at least
You,
pull
it's
that.
an you can
at least
Well,
yeah.
pull it.
For nothing says you have to try to send the entire sequence, and we can stack allocate these because the APIs, the OS APIs, do a copy. So we could say, for the first 10 buffers, first 10 segments in your sequence, we will stack a loop and pass
but what
those
do you
in.
stack a
Any
loop?
more than that, and you're on your own.
The array for the memory instances.
Yeah, but you can't stack a log an array.
Well,
And there's no
you
span of
stack out
span.
span. They take a span, they copy the span, they don't copy the memories, of course.
I mean, that's something they could do.
It seems
Obviously,
very,
there's an
very
implementation
reasonable to me. But there are enough API overloads that we have to add that we'll just do it in a second proposal.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Let me just add a comment that says like remaining we should have overloads for the methods that take widest of array segment of byte because they are more efficient. All right. Yeah, no, we have 2 minutes left, so I call it because I think we're done for today.
It's the last tab. You actually got through
Well, I already kept filling in more tabs as we were talking. All right, so then this is it. And let me just stop recording if I find the button.